Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio in Cumming, Georgia, it's time for Forsyth Business Radio.
And hello again, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Forsyth Business Radio. I am your host, Amanda Pierce, joined in studio today by two legends. If you have not heard of them, their name is sure to bless your ears here in the near future. I am with 1631 Digital, and I have Aaron Finley and Joe Corbe in studio. How are you doing today, fellas?
Fantastic.
Excellent.
And Joe actually flew all the way in from D.C. just for this show, didn't you?
Yep, and boy, are my arms tired.
Your arms are tired. I am thrilled that we had a chance to connect while you were in state. Thank you, Aaron, for reaching out, and I'm so glad that we're here together on the show. Before we start, and before I get too far into it, Aaron Finley is the Vice President of the Atlanta Operations arm here in Georgia, and Joe Corbe is the President and CEO of 1631 Digital. They are a 7-year-old full-service data and digital marketing firm with offices in D.C., Annapolis, and now Alpharetta, Georgia. So I will turn the mic over to you, Joe, and let you share a little bit about your role within the company and kind of the conception, and then we'll introduce Aaron as well.
Sure. Thank you so much for having us. Thrilled to be here. 1631 Digital started 7 years ago, primarily in the political issue advocacy space. We work with a number of political candidates. We still operate out of Washington, D.C., and in that regard, we are really identified as data specialists. We use a number of information and data sets that are unique. We combine about 10 different platforms where most people use just one, and we're able to get more of an intender-based sort of look at data in terms of how we deliver advertising. Obviously, there's not a political election every year, so we brought our company into B2C, started working with the luxury lines in the Annapolis, Maryland market. There we started working with Aston Martin, Bentley, Beneteau Yachts, and a number of other luxury restaurant chains in the area. That sort of ballooned into more advertising agency in scope. And now we're opened here in Atlanta, and this is going to be more of a hybrid between the political side and the brand service and consumer side.
Yes, excuse me. As Joe alluded to, we specialize in data and delivery, and it's targeting of a particular audience. We got really good at that in the political space, in the issue space, influencing folks or legislation on Capitol Hill, stuff going on in the executive branch or at the federal regulatory level. And then we thought, if we can hit a particular audience on Capitol Hill, we can do the same thing for, luxury auto, luxury boating, luxury retail, and luxury dining. And then, of course, we just took that and ran with it. And now we do it for everybody, for the local orthodontist down the street.
Well, that's very large scope that you guys cover. I'm really curious about the luxury brands, but I don't want to digress and go down a rabbit hole. Out of curiosity, what was the first company or client that you worked with, Joe? Obviously, are you the founder in addition to being the CEO?
I am the founder. It started during the Trump-Clinton election cycle. And we were working with some associations. I believe the first one was the National Pork Producers, a big sexy account. And they were looking to reach 5 farming states to get a number of people to mobilize and send in requests to Congress. And we were able to successfully identify audiences that would have higher propensities to reach out to their legislators. And that sort of got the ball rolling for us.
And then you jumped from pork and politics to luxury brands. And also,
so you can obviously see how that works well together, right?
Yes. So tell me a little bit about, because you were sharing before the show, your secret sauce as far as geofencing, and you used a whole bunch of terms that I'm unfamiliar with, but I will be Googling later so that I can sharpen my skill set as well. Hyper targeting and force multiplier. Those are all really strong words of emphasis. So Aaron, this question is to you specifically as the new overseer of this. You called it a hybrid market here. Mm-hmm. What do you use those things? Like, how do you apply those to your clients?
Well, excuse me.
Like, what are those things for people that are listening that don't know?
All right. So Joe is the data expert. I would explain it this way. I mean, we're using, as Joe said, in tender-based data, we have 550 million opt-in data points that we're accessing. And those are 0 to 5 days old. So it's the data that we're using is super fresh. We're also mixing that with a number of data relationships on up to 10 different delivery platforms simultaneously, which gives us this very robust data pool, allowing us to go out and target, as I like to say, anybody, anywhere they present themselves, anytime they present themselves online within a particular geography. And that's that particular audience. If we're looking at Forsyth County voters and Republican voters, we're going after them, here in Forsyth County. If we're looking at the same thing in Fulton or DeKalb or Cobb or statewide, it's just you give me the target, we'll create the profile, you show me the geography, and then we turn the data loose on that, and we can hit them wherever they might be.
So there's nobody that you can't reach.
That's exactly right. We can, start wars with this stuff.
Oh, gosh. And do you know, somebody told me a funny joke the other day. What's the best place to bury a dead body?
Where?
On the second page of Google. Nobody's looking on the second page of Google. Right. They're only looking on the first page. Yeah. Out of curiosity, what inspired you to bring this entity to the Atlanta area, specifically Alpharetta, from Maryland and D.C.?
Yeah, well, there's a variety of different reasons. If you go back to the last election cycle, it was so important in terms of the national politics or the political scene. Aaron is from this area. He grew up here, and I'll let Aaron kind of go into that. But being able to take that vantage of Washington, D.C. politics and everything that we just talked about and bring it to the local political scene down here is something that we think would be really, really good for everyone. And then the second part of that is giving local retailers and brands and services the opportunity to have a very high-tech, strategic ability to get their message out to customers and consumers. It just seemed like the most obvious thing we could do.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your expansion. And Aaron, I'd like you to unpack a little bit of a personal side first and foremost. I had no idea that you were local. So share with us your ties to the Atlanta area or Alpharetta or...
Yeah, so I, as I like to say, I grew up on the other side of the river over in Dunwoody. Went to North Springs High School and then finished school up at Darlington School in Rome, Georgia, and I'm a graduate of Georgia Southern University. I have a master's degree from GSU. But I spent 25 years in D.C., and it was just time to get out. Came back home, took some time off, and, I'd worked with Joe previously. We were former colleagues, also a good, close personal friend of mine. And so I worked with him in my capacity at 1631 previously, and then took some time off, and he wanted me to open an office here in Georgia. And Georgia's on fire from an economic development standpoint. I mean, the entire state, particularly Forsyth County, but the entire state is on fire. We thought what they do up in D.C. is, slick and sophisticated. And quite honestly, I don't think it holds a candle to what's been going on down here in the state of Georgia. I mean, it's, we thought we were big time up there. I'm thoroughly impressed. So this is the right place to be at the right time.
That's ironic to hear from you because you're a third party perspective, somebody coming from the digital space that's able to identify all of that growth and kind of capitalize on that and be on the front end of it rather than the back end of it. I would agree with you. This area is on fire as far as development, especially economic development. And we've seen a lot of change as far as the political nature here lately. Joe, tell us a little bit about your background and how you started the agency and about what your day-to-day role is like as the president and CEO.
So my day-to-day life is like living in a snow globe. I mean, this is like organized chaos. But we started 1631 Digital. As Aaron mentioned, we both come from the world of media. It's sort of a varied experience from Aaron, myself, and our C-level team. We come from political issue advocacy media, specifically inside the Beltway publications. Aaron was on the team that started Politico, but everyone else on our team is coming from broadcast, print media, out of home, TV. I mean, it's just an eclectic group. For me, when I started, I thought, dip into the contacts that we had in politics and extend what I learned from the other half of my career, which is working for the Tribune Company. I was the advertising director of the Baltimore Sun. And within that experience, it really taught me the value, especially seeing the transition from print to digital and how important it was, and how you could utilize that for bringing customers into the door. Everybody needs a digital strategy. Everybody has to have some sort of minimum expectation you could do for your company. And so we brought a lot of that experience to political candidates out of the door, and we were successful in sort of hitting the ground running.
That's amazing. So you both have a history in media. You mentioned something about print. Do you think print is dead?
I think there's always a place for print. Look, if it works, it's not dead, right? Mm-hmm. And I know that Atlanta Journal-Constitution or Baltimore Sun, Washington Post, people are still buying it. They might be absorbing it in a different way. A lot of that, with new demographics or audiences, people are looking online. They're looking on mobile phones, mobile devices. So I think, the core or star of the show is the content, right? So if they can just relay that and spoon feed it in different ways, there will always be a place for print.
Then it's all just about accessibility. You hit the nail on the head right there. Everybody's doing everything from their handheld devices. Aaron, talk a little bit about boots on the ground, who you look to work with. You and I cross paths at chamber events. You guys are headed to another event this evening. So how do you kind of get out there and meet the people that you want to do business with, and how do you educate them about your services without having to go into a hard pitch, hard sale? You guys have a very nice website. I was checking it out. You got some celebrity cameos on there. You've got a great resume. But how do you connect with prospects, and what do you do to market your own products and services?
Well, the majority of my career was spent cold calling. In DC, you can call somebody, out of the blue. They'll generally talk to you. They're curious. Started out that way here in Georgia when we opened up shop in January. And you don't get very far with that. People here I guess they're just too busy, and it's just a different culture. Business culture is different. I'm used to the government, aspect of it. And that's why we joined the chamber. I mean, we're members of the Forsyth Chamber, we're members of the Cobb Chamber, we're members of the Sandy Springs Perimeter Chamber, and then also the Alpharetta Chamber. And it's just that face-to-face. You can't beat that. Being in a room with somebody and, talking to them in person, exchanging cards, exchanging emails, setting up the call, that's how we're getting most of our business.
Very nice. Well, I will tell you what stood out to me for our listeners that can't see you is you have a very nicely styled facial hair. Handlebar mustache.
I have a gorgeous beard.
It's gorgeous.
It's luxurious.
Yeah, men would be, yes. Other men, you would have beard envy.
I have beard envy.
So we stood up when we did our 30-second pitch at a Mexican restaurant. And instantly, I was like, okay, check. Very well spoken, sharp individual. And then you handed me your card. Oh, it was nice and thick. And it stood out above all the rest. So those two things stood out to me instantly before I even kind of unveiled more layers. Talk about some success stories that you've had here in Atlanta, and then also with the other arms in DC and Maryland. We are now currently on the 23rd of May if you guys are listening live. So there's a primary election coming up, and I know you guys have had a hand in representing or helping fuel some of the candidates here locally. So I'll let you kind of share a little bit about that adventure.
Well, we're working a nonpartisan state court judge race. We're doing digital, some of the hyper-targeting for one of the candidates. And we expect him to do very well tomorrow. And for those of you who are not familiar with the candidates, vote for RuPaul. And if you're listening live, we'd love for you to cast your ballot for him tomorrow if you haven't already done it via early voting.
Absolutely. And maybe you could give a success story from Maryland or DC.
Sure.
Other than the pork.
Well, I was going to go in vast detail on the pork producer campaign, but
please do. I very much enjoy bacon.
It's super exciting.
It is super exciting. We are the agency of record of the Maryland Retailers Association. We work primarily to move issues on state house levels and things like that. We also work with Goodwill in a number of different markets. We do digital outreach on store level. Through that office, we also work with Goodwill. Sorry, I just said that.
It's okay.
I'm just thinking we work in a number of different markets, Goodwill of Dallas, Tucson, a few in Ohio. And then, who else? Oh, well, Aston Martin and Bentley and Beneteau Yachts would round it out.
Wow. That's quite the portfolio that you guys have.
It's
I can imagine that you mentioned a strategy portion. So let's say you're taking me on Amanda for America. Okay. I'm your new client. What does the strategy session, what does the pre-work kind of look like from a client standpoint if I wanted to choose your agency?
Yeah, so we want to be very transparent when we work with a candidate or a customer in general, and find out exactly what the outcome that you want to achieve would be. Ultimately, we would construct it from that. On the consumer side, if you wanted more customers, we would sort of look at the DNA of your customer base already and say, all right, here's your former customers, here's your active customers, here are competitive customers. Let's create a blueprint to find new customers. On the candidate side, it could be, okay, we want to appeal to people that are undecided, people that are on the other side of the fence, and get relative messages that they would resonate, at a higher level, and get them to find out what you're all about. The goal is to, get people to take subsequent action. So once they see the ad, feel compelled enough to actually click on the ad, make the visit, and then have an experience once they're on the page, and then we can kind of monitor it from there.
And as far as this, strategy you said with the homework, we do ask our clients to fill out a master strategy file. And with our system, we can go out blind, and the system, the artificial intelligence within the system and our own optimization manually will eventually find the targets and hit them. But if you front load our system with enough data, enough information on who you actually think your target is, and the system will optimize automatically anyway based on that information, it kicks it off that much faster. And clients who do that with us show results, in a lot shorter period of time than somebody who will just say, hey, I don't want to fill this out. And I've had a couple locally who are like, I just don't want to do the master strategy file. And you're like, okay, well, I did it for them. But there's nobody knows their business better than they do. Nobody knows their customer better than they do. I can kind of figure that out, and our system will eventually get it down. But if you front load with all that information and we go out from a targeting standpoint, we'll hit them, and we'll hit them quicker, and we'll hit them better.
That's what you want to do. Full force effectiveness. For those of you just joining, I am speaking here with Aaron Finley. He is the Vice President of the Atlanta operation for 1631 Digital, and also Joe Corbe, who has flown all the way in from D.C. He is the President and CEO. And if you're caring to get in touch with them, you can visit their website at 1631digital.com.
1631digital.com for the political side, and then 1631digitaladvertising.com for all other.
Okay, so if you want to learn more about all of their offerings or their scope of business, you can definitely check them out. When you guys are working with a client, what is the life cycle of that piece of business or that campaign or whatever you call it in your world?
So in politics, it's election day.
And that's the end.
That is the drop dead end. Everything that unfolds up until that point is sort of a build out of what works and what doesn't work, and just concentrating on what works, right? So we're constantly trying to find that sweet spot of optimization that we can continue on with and build and build and build. On the retail side or the brand or service side, it is a little bit more complex because we want to work with you forever. We want to be your in-house marketing team that actually does all this stuff for you, right? So that can take on a lot of different versions, right? Mm-hmm. So we could take a minimum expectation of revamping a website or doing SEO strategy, SEM strategy. We can create Facebook ongoing sort of social media campaigns, but then also ongoing event strategies or sales or things like that, top-of-mind awareness strategies, things that get people to do certain things like sign up for newsletters, likes, follows, appointments. Mm-hmm. The goal is to just work with the client, find out what is the most important, and then concentrate to figure out how to make that happen.
Yes. Do you guys help with lead generation?
We do.
Okay.
We do. Aaron touched on some of the artificial intelligence that we use. Ultimately, that helps us scale things. Once we find that DNA or that blueprint that we were talking about, then we can look at personal outreaches, right? And what we found is, you can send ads out in front of people all day long, and you're going to get, a certain amount of response, a certain amount of or expectation with that process. But if you are a very specialized industry, and most of the people that we work with are in these very particular industries, sometimes taking that information and delivering it and retargeting people in different forms, like a LinkedIn or Instagram, any kind of social media, in combination with display ads, in combination with connected TV or streaming audio, in a more omni-channel approach, that helps the lead gen pipeline. We have some clients that have mentioned that working with us, they have more customers in the pipeline or prospects in the pipeline than repeat customers for the first time in their company history.
Wow.
So it's just a matter of working collaboratively and being able to understand the marching orders and then just seeing it through.
Okay.
Yeah, the beauty of the whole thing is it's my background has been the influence game in Washington, D.C., and all this is, whether you're working with a political candidate, an issue candidate, or an issue campaign, or, an auto dealer or a restaurant, it's all the same. The data and delivery aspect of it is the same. I guess the subject matter is the only thing that changes. It's who are we targeting and what do we want them to do? We want them to cast a vote for the candidate, we want them to call the congressman,
or
write a letter, make a reservation, or, purchase the automobile. So what, a lot of what we do is taking the fly to be crewed, taking the fly and putting the fly in the web. And then it's the spider's job to come along and wrap the fly up and eat it. So like for our Bentley client in Washington, D.C., we'll put qualified test drives on the lot. Do all those people purchase the Bentley? No. Some of them do, but that's not our problem. We put the lead there. It's up to the Bentley guys on the lot to actually close a deal.
I love that.
We like to say if we take the boat over where the fish are, and then we find the particular fish that you want. So if you want blue fish, red fish, green fish, our job is to find those fish, put the hook in the water, and bring them in.
Nice. Good analogy.
That's better than the spider one.
I like my spider analogy.
Yeah,
come on.
They're great. Well, you guys you're 7 years old. Your company's 7 years old, and your Atlanta expansion is that of just this year. You said January, right?
Yep.
So what do you expect as far as growth in the next 3, 5, 10 years if you had a magic crystal ball or a snow globe?
Yeah, that's a good question because we don't want to scale just to scale. We want to take on customers and candidates that we feel that we can provide some impact and have some reasonable expectation that we can do a good job. And with that, that we're very cautious of just popping up and becoming like this huge national agency. Most of the people, as I mentioned before, that work at 1631 Digital, I've worked with in the past 25 years in media, and I trust them, and I know what they're all about, and I, sort of rely on that experience. So in order for us to sort of take that and move into other markets, there would have to be a lot of trust and a lot of experience that kind of goes into that. But I don't know. I feel like at this point we've done a good job in taking what we do already and building upon that and finding accounts that are similar and not kind of going out of that lane just to be a general population sort of run-of-the-mill advertising agency. Mm-hmm. We want to be more specialist and sort of take all of the data that we talked about, construct it in the best possible way, and then offer it to select clients.
Very nice. And as far as the service that you guys provide, you mentioned your teams, and Aaron, you oversee the Atlanta firm. What does your team dynamic look like? You mentioned several people, all with a rich media background. So do you have people in business development, people in marketing, people in sales? Aaron wears all the Atlanta hats. So kind of define your team. And
Sure. All in, we probably have about, and I say probably because we also have independent contractors and folks that are on the support side, about 25 all hands on deck. We started in Washington, D.C., and we have an office on Pennsylvania Avenue right by the White House. That team obviously houses all of the political stuff, and the Annapolis, Maryland location operates more in terms of a full-service advertising agency. So that houses our web dev team and our creative team. So if you needed a website built or a TV commercial constructed, those are the guys. And then the rest of the team, I guess, would be sales, support, and then the reporting team, which is, when you're dealing with all this data, just pulling it all together is a full-time job. And we've got about 5 people that all they do is reports on a typical campaign.
Yeah.
Yep.
When you have a customer or client, what do you refer to your clients, partners? When you're working with a partner, let's say a candidate for office, if they want stats on, your progress or your reach, are you able to provide them with any type of measuring stick for your efforts?
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, take this one because you're better at it than I am.
Yeah, so we've moved past just clicks because clicks don't really tell the whole story. What we want to do is tell the story of success. So we reached out to a select group of people. This many people came to the website, and this many people took subsequent actions. They were either retargeted, they watched a video, they signed up for something, they are planning on coming to an event. And being able to show that type of insight, there's got to be cause and effect in all advertising. But digital has always lacked that redemption quality, that attribution. We're even able to show foot traffic. If you wanted to target a certain group, maybe former customers or people that you've delivered to, we're able to see if the mobile devices that the ads appeared on actually showed up at a showroom. Right. So those types of insights are very interesting and compelling, as opposed to just spraying and praying and saying, hey, we put 1 million ads out there in Forsyth County. Great. What happened after that?
Right. Spraying and praying. I like that. I'll have to use that. Go ahead, Aaron.
To add to what Joe was saying, the political stuff and the issue stuff is very sexy. The issue, you can measure the results. You can see, like, we just won some Reed Awards, which is a campaign and elections thing for a campaign that we did for the Internet Security Alliance. And as part of that, we were messaging, trying to influence what was happening on Capitol Hill, or they were, and we were just doing the delivery, the data and delivery aspect. And folks on Capitol Hill, members of Congress, started using the language from the Internet Security Alliance in their press releases and in their statements on the floor. That's when you've crossed a threshold. That's measurable. You can see it. Political candidates, it's what happens on election day is where it comes. And, we've done some overseas political, and we were very successful in that. And, it's hard to measure. We got involved, if it's a 9-inning game, we got involved in that situation about the fifth or sixth inning, very populated, densely populated area in one of the most populated countries on earth. And we had 5 candidates. They were all slated to lose, or our client that we were working for at the time had 5 local candidates all slated to lose. We won 3 out of 5 as a result. Now, did we had direct impact on that, but can I tell you exactly what that was? No. But if we're working for, a steakhouse in Annapolis, for example, and we're, tracking reservations on the reservation page, people that we're targeting with ads, we're tracking when they go to the reservation page and make a reservation, or when they make a call, or as Joe alluded to, when they cross the threshold of the actual physical address, then we can know that, above and beyond what your normal reservations were, we put X number of reservations on your page or into your restaurant. You know what that is, cost per reservation. So they can give us X number of dollars, and we can turn around and say, we gave you this much more back. So that's what's really fun about this, more so than the political.
And even things like with some of our, even some other attribution points with some of our renovation companies, we're able to track phone calls that stem from the ads with click-to-call buttons, and being even able to record the calls, right? So they're able to match it up with their sales. We're able to see the names and the addresses of the people that showed up from our, pairing back or appending the data of the IP address and saying, okay, well, Aaron came to our site. Aaron ended up buying a new kitchen.
Nice. That's definitely ROI, I would say. Out of curiosity, like you mentioned, restaurant. I worked for Longhorn all 4 years being in college, and I actually went to school right up here at Dahlonega. When you work with a Longhorn or a Texas Roadhouse, just for example, do you work with each property on a local level, or are you targeting the corporate element in order to have them utilize your services?
Yeah, so most franchises are going to come from the top, right? They typically have one marketing director that handles all of those decisions. But the way that we operate on the, for lack of a better term, site level, or restaurant level is we would look at each campaign as an individual campaign and then give a master top-line performance of the program, and then here's what happened in Forsyth, here's what happened in Cummings, here's what happened, and go down the list and show individual campaign level analytics so they could see the effectiveness and what they might need to adjust. And that could also affect, if Tuesdays seems to be a slow day, we could push more impressions in Forsyth, or, we could push the lunch crowd, with different messages. So it's a good question. It varies. It's never the same, but right. For the most part, it usually comes from that corporate umbrella.
So is there any company or candidate or person that is too small or too large for your organization to surmount?
The answer is no, but it also has to have enough bandwidth or runway for it to be successful. The whole optimization program has to learn from itself. So that means it has to learn how to succeed just as much as it learns how to fail.
Yeah.
And the beauty is once it learns how to succeed, it pushes more in as a directional, strategy in that direction. So, I would say, there is, with us, we would be reasonable and say, if you could spend this in this area doing these particular things, you'll be successful. Otherwise, you might want to look at other forms.
Mm-hmm. And, I've learned in business that there's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody that comes across your table is the right fit.
Right.
And as business owners or leaders, it's okay to determine that and not take a piece of business. Aaron, being that we are here in the Atlanta area and you are overseeing the Atlanta arm, who do you look to work with outside of the political element? Because we've kind of driven that one home. Who do you look to do business with? Who would be a great connection for you?
I'm interested actually in, just from my Forsyth chamber experience, roofing companies, because I think usually we'll explain our system to folks. And again, folks know their business a lot better than we do. We know our system. We know what it can do. And we'll explain it to people. And sometimes people will come back and go, I don't need you for X, Y, and Z, but could you do this? And we'll scratch our head a little bit and think about it and be like, yeah, we can. And I just think for the roofers, I think that we would be the ability to get in front of people before a storm, in the middle of a storm, and after the storm is exactly what we can do. And we can do it from a geolocation standpoint. Also, one area that we're super interested in, and then we do a lot of work with up in the mid-Atlantic, is departments of economic development. Like we just had a meeting this morning with the head of communications for the state of Georgia Department of Economic Development, just talking to them, just having conversations. We'll be meeting with some folks out of Alpharetta, city of Alpharetta tomorrow to have that same type of discussion. So, in the state of Georgia is on fire. Forsyth County is on fire from an economic development standpoint, and our ability to, hit the right people with the right message wherever they might be, whether they're in, Iowa and you're trying to bring corporate headquarters or manufacturing to the state of Georgia or the county of Forsyth, or if they're in Taiwan and you're trying to bring, the semiconductor manufacturing. I guess you can't do it in Georgia, but you can do it in Texas. But you know what I mean? We'll be able to go out and reach out and touch the right folks in from a messaging standpoint, getting the, whatever municipality, whatever county, or whatever state entity that we're working with on the economic development side, we can get our message in front of the people who are going to make those decisions to bring that business here.
Very nice. You mentioned roofing, and I have a couple buddies who have started companies over the past few years. They broke a mill in their first year. They are on fire. But as a result, the market has become heavily saturated with all these roofing companies that have just stemmed from larger roofing companies because they all learned how to do it and they found the vendors, etc. So you're saying that you could help roofing company A stand out over roofing company B, C, and D in the saturated market through your direct efforts?
Sure. So, like the example I would give, in Washington, D.C., when I was at WTOP, we had, Patrick Finkel's, it's New Home Design. He's their roofing company, right? That guy spent money on every radio station, every television station, everywhere he could be. He just wanted to be top of mind awareness. I call it the Morgan and Morgan effect. Like if you get in an accident or something like, who are you going to call? Morgan and Morgan, because you know the name. That's it. And you know kind of what they do. So if you're in a situation after a storm and your roof is ripped off or there's a tree sticking out of it, you don't care who you contact or who contacts you first, because they're going to take care of it for you. They're going to do all the paperwork. They're going to deal with the insurance company. And most importantly, they're going to put the roof on in 24 hours. So our ability to get out in front and get a particular company's name and contact information in front of a homeowner who's got a problem that they need fixed yesterday, and they want it done now. Again, before the storm, during the storm, after the storm.
There's also ways to automate that process. So in broadcast, so you've heard of day parting.
Yeah.
There's something called weather parting. So when the temperature gets to a certain level, you can send out ads. If it starts raining, you can send out ads. If there's a weather alert for flooding, you can send out ads.
I have seen, just through organic efforts on Facebook and stuff, roofers that will post like the literal meteorologist, weather report, like, oh, a big storm is coming, like, prepare, call us for hail. And they're doing it like 2 days. And I'm looking at the weather app like, oh, wow, there is a storm coming in 72 hours.
Yeah, I would assume there's a little guesswork involved, because weather is, it's pretty precise, but it's not exact and not an exact science. So you're looking at an area, that's going to likely get hit. And so if you're going to be targeting folks before the storm, you're going to be painting with a broad brush. As the storm is coming through, we can adjust, down to literally, we can target within a couple feet of of that parking space out there.
Wow.
in the parking lot. But you can adjust as needed and almost in real time.
The radius.
So as the weather front is coming through and you're looking at a particular area that's going to get hit hard, and then after the fact which areas got clobbered, right? Mm-hmm. Where the winds were the most, because everyone's reporting on it. It's on the weather map, and then you can also just hone in on the particular homes, but within the particular area or neighborhoods that were damaged.
So one other thing, we all know that the best advertising is word of mouth, right? And the other thing that we can do is, let's say that Aaron is getting a new roof in his neighborhood. We can target the rest of the neighborhood, right? What roofers typically do is they stick a sign, another great roof by Joe's Roofing, mm-hmm. right? We can fence the entire neighborhood and make sure that just the homes in that neighborhood get a message from that roofer.
Very cool.
Yeah, we call that the Bentley Effect. So we did that for Bentley owners in the Washington, D.C. metro area. There's not very many of them, right? Mm-hmm. You're only talking about a few hundred. So we took the immediate neighborhoods and put Bentley advertising in the immediate neighborhoods of Bentley owners, and the idea being, if you live next to somebody who owns a Bentley, you could probably afford one as well.
Got to keep up with the Joneses.
Yep, exactly.
I like it. I love the how psychology plays into what we all do, and you guys are very passionate about 1631 digital, and I am also a passionate marketer, so I think we could speak about marketing all day long. I want to ask you a personal question, Joe.
Sure.
Obviously, this is your baby from conception to fruition. What is your favorite part about leading this organization?
Well, I spent close to 30 years working for other people, and I had some pretty good jobs along the way. And a lot of those jobs were me trying to explain to people, well, this is what I would do if it were me, building out a successful strategy. And turns out I was right. No, and just being able to implement a lot of this stuff, and just using a lot of good judgment, because we use artificial intelligence, we use data, but a lot of it is just very good specific strategy. And the cool thing is, surrounding myself with Aaron and Richard and Joe and some of the other folks on our C-level, they know way more than me, just in general, in terms of putting strategy together and responding to RFPs and just having very professional responses, and being able to see those responses come back and then the campaigns unfold and then having them be successful is probably the most rewarding thing.
I could see how that is. I wanted to ask you, and I'll ask you, Aaron, and Joe, chime in if you'd like. One thing that I failed to mention that you guys do is work with nonprofits. Give me an example of what you guys do to assist a nonprofit. Forsyth is loaded with nonprofits. We actually host a nonprofit segment called Giving Back to Forsyth. So what could you do for Jesse's House or the collection? How would you guys help them specifically?
So we work with a number of nonprofits, as you mentioned, to handle a lot of different levels of marketing. The best minimum expectation that a nonprofit can do for themselves is to work within the Google Grant program. We have a team that's all they do. They work with Goodwill and some of our Veterans Affairs groups to get a grant from Google that will pay upwards of $10,000 a month in credit, right? And it's all cost per click. It's all, not glamorous stuff, but the stuff that you're able to use it for is great for development, donations, all kinds of different things. With Goodwill in particular, they use it for car donation. They use it for events. The only thing that you can't use it for is education and competitor targeting, where you're going after your competitors in a way that's not in line with what they have outlined. So, that type of, just getting on the ground floor of Google and having the search engines react and having organic, audiences find you is literally the best possible scenario that they can do. Everything else, we can find donations. We can target former donors. We can target people to sign up and follow and like and just all the usual things that people want from digital. But it varies. There's a lot of event strategies that we work on as far as concerts and things like that.
Yeah,
so
to raise funds and awareness.
Yep.
Very cool. And you answered my question directly, because obviously nonprofits are not for profit. So they are seeking funding all day, every day. That's in their main vein. So that grant is very useful. I'll have to share that information with some of the local nonprofits.
Unless you're a DC nonprofit, because there's nothing nonprofit about a DC,
DC nonprofit.
Yep.
You guys, time has passed so quickly, and I promised I wouldn't keep you here for too long, although that door is locked, so you cannot escape. I want to give you the opportunity to share your contact information with our listeners, and then any parting thoughts or any words of wisdom that you might like to leave with those listening.
I'm not going to run with the words of wisdom. The only thing that I would say is, in terms of marketing in general, I think you have to expand on more of an omni-channel approach. And, I'm not saying digital is right for everybody, but you have to do something. You have to get your name out there. You have to, expand it in a number of different directions. Digital certainly can help, but, broadcast is great. The goal is to get the end response that we were talking about, either get elected or get customers in our case. So, I think that at the end of the day, find a strategy that, is viable and keep doing it.
I like it. And Aaron?
I would just say, if you're interested, give me a call. My number's 202-631-3157. You can reach me at Aaron at 1631digital.com. And you could reach Joe at Corby at 1631digital.com. Joe, if you want to give him your number.
Well, the email is corbe at 1631digital, and then my phone number is 443-310-6266.
And see, he has a Baltimore area code. I have a DC, and I'm never going to get rid of my DC.
I like it. Hold on to it. And Aaron is spelled Aaron for those that might be fiddling with how to spell Aaron.
Correct.
Gentlemen, I've enjoyed our conversation tremendously. I look forward to continuing to learn more about your organization. Aaron, I look forward to participating in some events together. For those of you who would like to find this episode, you can download Forsyth Business Radio on your favorite audio platform. Where do you listen to podcasts, Joe?
On 1631digitalnews.com.
You have what? You can listen to podcasts there?
Yeah,
we
have a number of partners, but all the usual suspects: Spotify, Pandora,
iTunes. Me too.
iTunes.
And yourself?
Same as Joe.
Same? Okay, well, I'm going to have to check it out. Well, you can access these shows 24/7 on businessradiox.com and simply select the Forsyth Studio. If you'd like to follow along with us on social media, please do. We'd love to engage at Forsyth Radio X. I have been your host, Amanda Pierce, and this is Forsyth Business Radio.